Thank you everyone for coming. I will say the Mangala Charana first. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Siddhantot Palasara Nityarasikam Hangsam Vilasatmakam Audarya Kya Sudhama Sevaka Dhanam Vishrambha Bhakti Pradam Yacha Yukti Vichakshanam Tvaghabido Vaishishta Shaktya Sada Vandeham Tripurari Namaka Yatim Shri Bhakti Vedantinam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Swami Shri Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupadaya Te Namaha Gurvagyam Shirasi Dritva Shaktya Swarupine Hare Krishneti Mantrena Paschatya Prachatarine Vishvacharya Prabharyaya Divya Karunya Murtaye Shri Bhagavatam Madhurya Gita Jnana Pradaine Gaura Shri Rupa Siddhanta Saraswati Nishevine Radha Krishna Padam Bhoja Bringaya Gurave Namaha Devam Divyatanum Suchandavaranam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Shri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Sarasvatanam Varam Vandetam Shubhadam Madeka Sharanam Nyasishvaram Shridharam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Godadaye Pushpavanto Chitro Sangdo Tamonado Harer Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Naste Vanasteva Gatiranyata Vrindayai Tulasi Devyai Priyayai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Satyavatyai Namo Namaha. So, welcome again. So tomorrow is the, now not sure if it's disappearance or appearance. Let me just double check. Tomorrow is the disappearance day of Shrivas Pandit, at least here in Europe. So I was thinking that it would be fitting to speak about the glories of Sri Narada Muni today, as Shrivas Pandit is identified with Sri Narada Muni, and also it's like there are three personalities: Narada Muni, Shri Madhumangal in Vraj, and Shrivas Pandit in Navadvip in Gauralila. And some months ago, Padmanabha Maharaj was giving a class on Gadadhar Pandit and mentioned very nicely that, as he has said before, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and Mahaprabhu is the supreme personality of Krishna. And in the same way, he said that Srimati Radharani is the Swayam Shakti, so the supreme personality of Shakti, and then Sri Gadadhar Pandit is the supreme personality of Radha, so the highest expression of Srimati Radharani. And in the same way, we can say about like we can see like among Mahaprabhu's and Krishna's associates, like we have some that are manifest in Dvaraka Lila or Vaikuntha, and also have a form in Vraj, and then they also have a form in Gaura Lila. And in the same way there, you can say that, so to make some examples here, we have Garuda, Vishnu's bird carrier in Vaikuntha and in Dvaraka Lila. And he is appearing in Vrajalila as Shriram Saka, the brother of Shrimati Radharani. So you could say that like there, of course, Shridam is the higher expression, and even higher in Gaura Lila is Shri Abhiram Gopal Thakur, and in Dvaraka and Vaikuntha, and also moving freely in the material world, we have Shri Narada Muni, and in Vrajalila we have Shri Madhumangal, and Madhumangal is sometimes described as being like an expansion of Narada Muni, but that is in the Lila it's seen like that. But if we are discussing the philosophy and the tattva, then of course Madhumangal would be the source of Narada, so the other way around. And so if Madhumangal is the supreme personality of Narada, then Shrivas Thakur would be the supreme personality of Madhumangal, or like the supreme aspect or highest expression. But I will focus a bit more on Narada Muni today to kind of give a base, and tomorrow Padmanabha Maharaj will speak on Shrivas Thakur in Bulgaria. So I'm sure he's going to focus more on the Gaura Lila, but that is just my guess. So Narada Muni is very, very special. He's the most he's like the personality that appears the most in all of the Puranas. There are just numberless stories about him, and he always appears at the right moment, gives perfect teachings. He's also getting many teachings, but it seems like the teachings that he receives are more to kind of manifest those teachings for others. So kind of like Arjuna, who, by the way, Arjuna is another personality we can see in these levels. That we can see Arjuna in Dvaraka, Arjuna in Vraj, and then Arjuna in Gaura Lila as Ramananda Roy. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is receiving many teachings, and he is put into illusion so that Krishna can give those teachings to mankind, but through Arjuna. So just like we have the Brahma Vimohan Lila, we also have the Arjuna Vimohan Lila and many Narada Vimohan Lilas. Some famous examples are the story of Krishna's headache. So Krishna is complaining to Sri Narada Muni that he has a headache and he needs dust from his devotees' feet to cure the headache. And Narada goes around to different devotees and asks them for some of the dust of their feet. And they all refuse to get it because they feel like they will end up in hell if they put the dust from their feet on Krishna's head. So Narada goes back to Krishna and gives his report, and Krishna tells him that he should go to Vrindavan to ask the gopis for their foot dust to put on Krishna's head. And so Narada Muni goes there, and the gopis immediately agree to give their foot dust. And Narada asks them, but aren't you afraid of going to hell? And the gopis respond that it's like hell, or like being in hell or being in heaven, being on earth, like makes no difference as long as we can serve Krishna, in this case cure Krishna's headache. So of course Krishna arranged this whole situation to teach Narada about the glory of the gopis, and in this way also teach everyone who hears the story about the glory of the gopis. There are also teachings where Narada is simply put in illusion just to see what Maya is like. So to create stories that teaches what Maya is like, what it's like to be in material illusion, because we are so close to it that we don't realize. So it's good to have an outsider perspective. Let's see, I'm going to read one of those versions. There are many versions of these stories, but let's see. So this is from one of the Puranas. While staying once with Krishna at Dvaraka, Narada and the former went out on a tour in an aerial chariot. On the way, they saw a stream, and Krishna stopped the chariot there as Narada wanted to quench his thirst at the stream. Narada drank water from the stream, disobeying Krishna's injunction that he should bathe before drinking water. And lo, the next moment, Narada was turned into a woman, and when she looked around, neither Krishna nor the chariot was to be seen. She wandered about in the forest and at last reached an ashram. When the rishi of the ashram awoke from his samadhi, he saw standing before him a beautiful woman who requested him to accept her as his disciple. He readily granted her request. The preceptor married the disciple, and in due course of time, she became the mother of 60 children. One day, all the 60 children and their father expired together. The grief-stricken widow felt too weak to perform the obsequies of the dead. Not sure what that word means in English, what to speak in Spanish, but an extraordinary hunger also held her in its grips. She raised her hand to pluck a fruit from the mango tree that stood nearby, but could not reach the mango above. She placed together the corpses one on the other, mounted on the heap of dead bodies, and plucked the mango fruit. Immediately, a Brahmin arrived on the spot and exhorted the widow on the impropriety of taking food without bathing after the death of husband and children. When the widow entered the stream and dived in its waters, holding above water the hand in which was held the mango, and lo, it was Narada who came out from the water. Only the hand which had been held above water and in which was held and which did not therefore get wet, remained like that of a woman with bangles thereon. The Brahmin who stood there on the banks of the stream did not therefore get wet, remained like that of a woman with bangles thereon. The Brahmin who stood there on the banks of the stream transformed himself into Krishna. As ordered by Krishna, Narada again dived with the whole of his body in the water, when the hand also turned into that of a man. The mango held in the hand turned into an excellent veena, and Krishna told Narada, the rishi who lived with you as your husband, and who is no more than Kala Purusha, and the 60 children are years, Prabhav, Vibhav, etc. So Narada was turned into a woman, and she married with time, and their children were the different measurements of time, like hours and years, etc. This also happens to be one of the stories of how Narada got his veena. In other stories, he was sort of born with it from Brahma. But in the Puranas, we also hear of many different lifetimes of Brahma, of Narada. Some like recurring themes is that Narada is very much like a renunciate, but he's asked to be a progenitor, like a Prajapati, and he's also kind of creating trouble in the universe by like converting others who are also meant to be Prajapatis, like who are supposed to populate the universe. Like for example, sometimes the question is asked, like what happens if everyone becomes renunciates, then there won't be any universe anymore. But there are, of course, different forces at will in the universe, and somehow it always goes on because it's the will of Krishna. But also it should be understood that there are unlimited jivas. So no matter how many becomes renunciates or liberated, there is always more jivas, and the universe will always go on with Krishna's pastimes. And because the universe is meant for Krishna's pastimes only, so somehow it will always go on. But in previous lifetimes of Narada, it's like describing him also before he was a kind of full devotee. He was he had a birth as a Gandharva, like a heavenly singer, but he participated in a yagya, in a sacrifice, and the kind of the Vedic priests were kind of annoyed with him because he was kind of chanting with a lot of ego and was kind of disturbing the mood. So he was cursed to take birth as the son of a maidservant. So which means like low caste birth. But here's an important teaching that any contact with a sadhu, a Vaishnav, is auspicious. So even though Narada in his previous birth was disturbing the yagya, like disturbing the devotees, still, and he was cursed. A curse from a devotee still always carries a blessing with it. So he was blessed with further sadhu sangha in his next birth, and as a young boy, being the son of this maidservant, he is they are living in a it's called like a dharmashala, so a place where pilgrims can come and stay for a short while before they continue on their pilgrimage. So Narada was serving a group of devotees, and as a small boy, and he was listening to them. He was eating the Mahaprasadam from them, and this kind of enlightened him. And when his mother passed away, then he left home, and he went on pilgrimage himself. Having seen all these pilgrims, he became a pilgrim and entered the forest to meditate. And after a long time of sadhana, Krishna appeared to him and kind of mocked him, calling him a fake yogi, because telling him that he was attached to this kind of this type of forest lifestyle. But like the experience of having the darshan of Krishna was very powerful. And then Krishna disappeared, which then created this feeling of separation, which pulled him on like further in his sadhana. And in his next life, he was. I think it's explained that he was, upon his death, he attained perfection, and then he took birth as a son of Brahma in his next life, with his with a perfect spiritual body, a siddha deha, but in the material world, interestingly, but he has a very special position, Narada Muni, that he can move anywhere. He can move anywhere in the material world. He can move into the spiritual world and the different dhams in the spiritual world, like in Vaikuntha, Dvaraka, Vrindavan. So he's a very there is no one else like that, and he is called Munipati, the leader of the Munis, because there are also other Munis who move in the universe, but none like on the same level as him. So he receives, like in the course of his progress, he has received both curses and blessings and teachings, and as we shall see, he also passes on this kind of same way that he learned things. He also passes that on. Like he teaches others the philosophy. He curses others, but in a way that blesses them. So we can see how these things go from generation to generation spiritually. One example of Narada receiving teachings is from his father, Lord Brahma, in the Kali Santarana Upanishad, and that is the source in this world of the Mahamantra. Narada Muni asks Lord Brahma, his father, about the age of Kali and what will be the most powerful spiritual practice. And Lord Brahma tells him that it will be the chanting of this this mantra of 16 names: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it is also mentioned there that Mahaprabhu also teaches later that there are no rules for chanting these names. Let's see. There is also another like pastime of Narada getting chastised for kind of similar to the story where he was cursed for disturbing the devotees with his ego, basically. And that is at a time where he feels that he's a very good musician, and he is a very good musician. But here is again a pastime where he's kind of like, although he is spiritually perfect, he is kind of brought into illusion that he's kind of puffed up about his veena playing. And Krishna brings him into a forest, and in the forest there are several kind of celestial women, sort of goddesses, but some of them have cut off arms or a cut off leg, and Narada gets gets shocked, and he asks Krishna who these goddesses are, and Krishna says that they are the personifications of the different ragas, and because of how you are playing, they look like this. So of course Narada gets very humbled, and of course everything is solved. The ragas get their limbs back. It was only for the sake of teaching. So now a little bit about Narada's disciples. He has many very prominent disciples. And I remember some years ago, Gora Sundar at Madhuban, he was kind of marveling at how many prominent disciples Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had. Like you can see Srila Prabhupada, Srila Shira Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Hridai Bon Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Daita Madhava Maharaj, and quite a few more. So he has just so many disciples who are, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. So many disciples who in turn have so many other disciples and are like big prominent acharyas in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And in the same way, we can see Sri Narada Muni. He has so many very special disciples, and that of course tells something about him and his expertise. Sometimes he has very saintly disciples, but he's not discriminating. He also has very he also accepts disciples who are in a very low condition and brings them very far by his teachings and by his very expert way of engaging people in bhakti. But we can begin then like with on the sort of lower end where it's like not even that he accepted disciples or that someone accepted him as a guru, but the opposite, that he was offended and he cursed someone, and then they became very elevated. So as I mentioned, a curse from a Vaishnava also has a blessing within it. So there is a story where Narada passes by a lake where Kuvera's sons are bathing. Kuvera is the kind of the accountant of the demigods, and his sons Nala Kuvera and Manigriva were bathing naked in a lake, And Narada Muni saw them, and they saw him, but they did not give him any respect. They kind of and they didn't cover themselves. So Narada cursed them that since they like to stand naked, then they will get to stand as trees. But of course, because the curse came from Narada, then there was the blessing, and the blessing was that they got to stand as trees in Vrindavan, and they grew to be very tall trees. So they got to see everything. They saw the whole of Krishna Lila, from Krishna's birth and until he left for Mathura and Dwaraka. So they had an overview of the whole Vrindavan Dham and could see everything that happened. And very interestingly, they attained perfection in the Damodar Lila. When Krishna makes the trees fall by pulling the what is it called, the mortar in between the trees. So at that time they are liberated, and they actually attain perfection with Siddha Dehas in Krishna Lila. They are called Madhukanta and Snigdakanta, and they retell the whole Krishna Lila as bards. Actually, they become bards in the Nitya Lila, who tells Krishna's life story to Krishna and his family and associates and friends. So that is a sign again that any contact with a Vaishnav will ultimately give you perfection, even if it starts off bad. And then we can look at some of the disciples who were first not in a very high position, but they at least listened to Narada, took his teachings seriously, and attained perfection. Those two are Mrigari the hunter and Shri Valmiki. So Shri Valmiki is famous as the author of Ramayana, the story about Lord Ramachandra. He was making his living as a dacoit, as they're called, a robber. And he would rob people and sometimes kill them. And then he would bring the loot home to his family. And one day he happened upon Narada Muni, and Narada Muni asked him, like if he has thought about like the consequences for his actions. And Valmiki, of course, he was not called Valmiki at this time. I don't remember what his name was before, but the man who becomes Valmiki, he says, well, like, I have to support my family. So Narada asks him, well, go home and ask your wife and children if they're willing to, or ask your wife if she's willing to share your karma. So he does that, and the wife says no. She's not. She just wants the money that he brings home, but she doesn't want to share the karma with him for having robbed and killed people. So of course the man is very disenchanted, but he gets a sense of remorse and a sense of renunciation. Like he of course sees that this is not a path worth pursuing, and he should like renounce his material life. So Narada Muni advises him to meditate on the names of Vishnu, but he says he can't, or he instructs him specifically to chant the name of Rama, and Valmiki, he says he can't, like that is too high for him, too pure for him, like in his like low state, like he can't like handle such a thing. So Narada tells him that since you're so preoccupied with finding victims to kill and rob, then you can chant Mara, which means death. So Valmiki agrees to this, and he sits down and he just chants Mara, 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 Mara. And of course, when you chant Mara, Mara over and over, you also chant Rama, Rama over and over. So as he got purified, of course, he focused more on Rama, 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 and he did that for a very, very, very long time. So ants started to build an ant's nest around him, and the word Valmiki means ant's nest. So he was completely covered by this ant hill, and now I actually don't remember how he got out of that, but I'm assuming someone walked by the anthill and heard the chanting from in there and uncovered him. But so by that time he has become very purified and inspired, and from within his heart the Ramayana is revealed, and he writes it down. So that's the Valmiki Ramayana. There are also other versions of the Ramayana. And the other kind of not so highly qualified disciple was Mrigari the hunter. This of course also shows that there is no prerequisite for bhakti. It's not that you have to have some qualification before to receive bhakti. Bhakti will enter anywhere and purify you, and then bring you to transcendence. So Mrigari the hunter, he was a very cruel hunter. He would he would not kill animals. He would just shoot them, let's say with an arrow, in the way that they would not die immediately. They would die very slowly. And Narada somehow came to know of this and approached him and spoke to him, kind of like he had done to Valmiki. He tried to like teach him about spiritual practice and morals, ethics, and Mrigari he could understand, but kind of like Valmiki, he was also like he was not able to like directly take up spiritual practice. So Narada gave him very simple instructions. He simply told him to chant the holy names and kill the animals all the way. So he was not telling him to not kill animals anymore. He told him to kill the animals, but to kill them fully, so that they wouldn't suffer unnecessarily. And then Narada went away for a long time, I guess some years, and when he came back, Mrigari was like transformed. So he had followed the instruction, and that had purified him so that he could kind of take it to the next step, and then the next step, and become more and more compassionate. So by the time that Narada arrived again, this Mrigari, he was kind of so careful that he was mindful about not stepping on ants. From killing animals, from just damaging animals and leaving them to die slowly. Yeah, he was refusing to step on ants, and of course, this was happening along with his direct bhakti practice of chanting. So we should also take the kind of relative instructions we have been given, along with the absolute instructions, like the direct spiritual instructions of chanting, hearing, remembering Krishna, worshipping the deity, and so on, and kind of let that be like the core of our practice, but then we should also see that that the relative instructions, that we are able to follow those on the strength of our more core spiritual practices. Then we have another very prominent disciple of Narada Muni is Shri Prahlad Maharaj, and he is also an interesting example, because he is in a blessed state when he comes in touch with Narada, but Narada kind of gives him the push he needs. So Prahlad, in his previous life, he had attained some bhakti sukriti, some spiritual merit, but unknowingly. So he had been blessed without knowing about it. So Narada was the one who kind of came to give direction and more shape to those blessings when Prahlad was in the womb of his mother. So he's of course the son of Hiranyakashipu, who had taken over the universe. So the gods wanted to kidnap Prahlad's mother and kill her, but Narada knew that she was pregnant, and that this baby in the womb was had bhakti samskaras. So he came and he was speaking to Prahlad's mother, but Prahlad kind of got the teachings in the womb, and was born with very strong devotion. He was drawn to. It is described that he was drawn to Krishna as if it was an astrological influence. But of course, it's something higher than astrology. It was the blessing of Narada, and which was the kind of fulfillment of the earlier blessings Prahlad had received. Another disciple is Dhruva Maharaj, who had who had received some. Of course, it's hard to, like, I can't tell the whole backstory of everyone, but Dhruva Maharaj had been treated unfairly, so he wanted to leave home, and well, basically he wanted a kingdom that was bigger than his grandfather's kingdom, and his grandfather was Lord Brahma. So it's not easy to find a higher kingdom, or a bigger kingdom than the whole material world. But his mother advised him that he should go to the forest and because in the forest that's where the rishis are, and the rishis, they are the ones who are in touch with God, and God is the one who can fulfill all your desires. So Dhruva went there, and also happens upon Narada Muni, and Narada Muni hears Dhruva's story, gives him a blessing and a mantra, just says, by chanting this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, all your desires will be fulfilled. So Dhruva chants this mantra until he attains perfection. And when he attains perfection, it is not the perfection that he was striving for even. But he actually got darshan of Vishnu. And when he received this darshan of Vishnu, then he realized that what he was searching for, this big kingdom, was like searching for broken pieces of glass in comparison to a diamond. And but he still receives, like, because he is purified. Of course, all his desires are in relation to Krishna. So he still receives a kingdom that is bigger than his grandfather's, and that is a planet that is within the material world, but it's like a Vaikuntha planet, and therefore it's even though it looks like it's in the material world, it's something that's bigger than the material world. It's like the holy dham. So that's Dhruva Loka. So there we also see that we may come to Krishna consciousness with other desires than to serve Krishna, but we should just have faith and go on, like knowing that our core practices of chanting and hearing and so on will purify all our other desires by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. So then now we come to a very high disciple of Sri Narada Muni, and that's Srila Vyasadeva, who had compiled all the Vedic literature, but he was still not satisfied. And Narada Muni appeared on the scene and explained to him why he was not satisfied, and that was why and the reason was that he had not explained in no uncertain terms that devotion to Krishna is the highest goal, and there was also no like thorough like description of Krishna Lila in a way that brought out the feeling of Krishna Lila. There was, of course, in Padma Purana and other Puranas, like stories of Krishna, but not in the way that the Srimad Bhagavatam does. So Narada Muni instructed Srila Vyasadeva to enter Samadhi and in samadhi he would see everything clearly, and then he could come out again and write the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what he does, and that's how we now have the Srimad Bhagavatam, thanks to Narada Muni. So this is kind of similar to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, how we have our very important Shastras in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, thanks to Sri Nityananda, because he blessed Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj, who wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He blessed Vrindavan Das Thakur, who wrote the Chaitanya Bhagavat. He blessed Jiva Goswami, who wrote the Sandarbhas, and he blessed Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, who wrote so many texts on our prayojan of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the highest goal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And in the same way, we could see like with Valmiki and Sri Vyasadeva, Narada is kind of like the hand behind the Srimad Bhagavatam coming into existence, and the Valmiki Ramayana. But the highest, I would say the most prominent disciple of Sri Narada Muni would be Sri Purnamasi, and she is Yogamaya personified in Krishna Lila, also in Gaura Lila as let's see, Purnamasi appears in Gaura Lila as, what's her name, Sita Thakurani. So Yogamaya, of course, is you can say in a way like the mastermind of the whole Lila. She's behind everything. She kind of she's kind of pulling the strings of the whole Lila, every little detail, of course with assistance from Brinda Devi and others, but she's really, like, you can say, because she's the one who is aware of everything that's going on. Everyone else is kind of under her spell. So and she is a disciple of Narada Muni. So Narada Muni is as you can see, an extremely important personality in our sampradaya. He's the let's see, the second person in our sampradaya. First Lord Brahma, and then Narada, who was then teaching Vyasadeva. Very important person in the Leela, in our life. And now I haven't mentioned much about Shri Madhumangal in Braj Leela, the manifestation of Narada Muni in Braj Leela. But there he is it's called a Vidushaka. It's called in Sanskrit drama. He's the jester, the comedian, and the comedian has a very important role in society and in drama. Because the comedians are those who are able to take the things that people feel awkward to talk about, like subject matters that are maybe heavy. Like, they are able to take those subjects and speak about them lightly in a way that you can laugh about them, and be able to process them. And he's a cowherd friend of Krishna. Not a cowherd. He's a Brahmin, but he's always associating with the cowherd boys. So you can see, as Narada Muni, he's moving everywhere without a fixed place. He was cursed by Daksha, one of the progenitors of the universe, because he was preaching to Daksha's sons to become renunciates. So Daksha cursed him that Narada wouldn't be able to stay in one place for more than three. Can't remember if it's 3 days or if it's even short. Maybe it's even, maybe he cannot even stay one day in the same place. And then you see in Vrindavan, Madhumangal, he doesn't have his own home, but he is able to stay at one place every day, and that's Krishna's home. So he's always sleeping over at Krishna's place. And then in Gaura-lila, as Shrivas Pandit, it's kind of reversed. That there he is a householder, and he's the one who's hosting everyone else. So from like not being able to stay in one place to in Vrindavan not have a place, but always be able to stay at Krishna's place. In Gaura-lila, he has his own place, and he is hosting everyone else. And in Navadvip Lila, there are the personalities from all over the universe, like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and everyone. So he's really like the whole universe is in his home, in his house, in Srivasa's courtyard. So that is what I had for today. Okay, so I see the comment from Gayatri, and actually while I was saying it, I thought the same thing. Oh, like how if they become liberated in Nanda Maharaja's courtyard, being torn down by Krishna, how can they witness the whole Krishna Lila until Krishna leaves for Mathura? I was wondering, I hadn't thought about it before, and I was wondering the exact same thing as I was saying it. But in Gopal Champu, they tell the whole story. So I guess even after they're just like kind of thinking about it, like now, I suppose that after they are liberated, they must have been kind of attached to be able to stand there the whole time and see the whole Leela. So I guess they remained in some form in Vrindavan as celestial beings and continued to witness the Leela. Okay, let's see, Sarada, which sounds very similar to Narada, says, yes, maybe because they were touched by Krishna, then they couldn't separate from him. I'm not sure, as I read the story a while ago. Good reminder to find out, thank you. Yeah, it seems like Sharada had a kind of similar thought to mine there. Sharada also says, thank you for the uplifting class. Jai Radhe. Jai Radhe. Yeah, it is described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that Narada Muni is chanting the names of Radhika Raman. Narada Muni Bhajai Vina. Radhika Ramana Name. Yes, it is nice to hear that these disciples of Narada were meant to give roles for such powerful Vaishnava literature, and their lives were a pre-arrangement, at least partly, for this generation of scripture. Yes. Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, anything?
Syamananda, Haribol, it's Omkar.
Haribol, Omkar. Pranam.
I wanted to ask you what kind of Shastriya Praman you give in concluding that Srivasthakur is the source of Madhumangal, etc. in this way. If we're looking at, like you mentioned in the beginning of a class, what would you say?
Well, of course, like they are all eternal. There has always been a Srivas Thakur, there has always been a Narada, and always a Madhumangal, but since Gaura-lila is the highest expression of the totality of the Lila, so that if you want to talk about a source, it's like basically like if Mahaprabhu is the source of course it always goes in circles, but and it is also explained in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita that first there was one one God who divided into two as Radha and Krishna, and now the two of them has combined again as Mahaprabhu. So it kind of goes in like there is no beginning or end, or but like everything that is in Narada and in Madhumangal is also in Shrivas, but like maybe Shrivas has something more. That's what I would say. Is that satisfying or?
Yes, it's satisfying. I'm satisfied already when I heard it, but I just wanted to hear some more words.
Okay. Yeah. So like there's like I can't point to any specific pramana about Shrivas himself specifically, but just like the whole of Gaura Lila is the highest expression of Krishna Lila. That means also everything in Gaura Lila is also the highest expression of all the details from the other Lilas. Okay, so we can stop here. I apologize for talking at the same time as Padmanabha Maharaj, so I guess those who want to can head over to his class now. He usually speaks for way longer anyway, so there is probably much more nectar there. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanand Hari Bol. Thank you, everyone.